I'm in Ecclesall, Sheffield. I've been thinking about the subject of idolatry. I read this psalm the other day that's amazing. It says this, it's Psalm 135 verses 15 to 18. Verse 15 starts by saying, "The idols of the nation are silver and gold, the works of human hands." I heard an interesting definition of idolatry. Idolatry is worshipping something that's created rather than the creator, and this is what this psalm is affirming. And then in verse 16 and 17 it goes on to say, "They have mouths but do not speak, eyes but do not see, ears but do not hear, nor is there any breath in their mouths." In other words, the idols that humans create are lifeless, breathless, and have no power. They're dead. Why worship something like that? And then in verse 18 it finishes off with a really profound statement. It says this, "Those who make them become like them, as do those who trust in them." The people that make the idols become like the idols. We become like that which we worship. And if we worship idols, we become like idols. If we worship God, we become like God. But is this relevant to the church today? When we think of these idols, or these images or statues that are made out of silver and gold with people bowing down and worshipping them, we don't see this in modern Western culture. So do we need to worry about it? Well, John writes this in 1 John chapter 5 verse 24. He says, "Little children, guard yourself from idols." In other words, John recognizes that idolatry is a risk for the church, and he calls the church to be careful and be aware of idols. So what types of idols could there be in the church? Well, I want to talk about three things: money, relationships, and status. Money can be an idol if we love it more than God. And you might be tempted to think that only rich people idolize money, but in fact, I believe even poor people can idolize money. It's about your love of money, and that's the key thing that determines if you idolize it. We can idolize relationships. Maybe it's a relationship with your parents or your children that you idolize. Maybe it's your husband or spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend. Or maybe you idolize a relationship that you don't yet have. We can also idolize status, and that could be status in our family, status in our workplace, or even status in our church. And all of these things can take the place of God. They can become our first love. They're not innately wrong. There's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing innately wrong with family. There's nothing innately wrong with status. There's nothing innately wrong with relationships. But if we put them in the first place in our hearts, then they become an idol to us. There's only one that is worthy of worship and being the first place of our hearts, and that's the living God.